Does that make sense? I think we have something going here. Killer piece. I haven't really conceptualized yet. I have an idea, but I don't. It's not as good as the Schnee photo. But I'm talking about some stuff in this one that I really enjoy. So, um, brutalism. Okay, so brutalism is just what you see in these pieces. It's this ominous, foreboding architecture style, and it's like I am not an architect. I actually have a group of friends of mine who are near and dear to my heart who are architects, and I am not going to say anything. I'm just going to say like it's big, ominous, stripped down buildings. I consider them just to be like ominous, and that was kind of what I was hoping for, is just ominous, right? The real answer to me was the idea of worship, right? That cell phones both oppress and are deified. So I really wanted to play that contrast. The oppression that I believe, when I look at brutalism, I feel oppressed by it. It's just so daunting. So from that standpoint, I think it's easy to kind of conceptualize it from that standpoint. Um, and again, you've got this other side of the coin of having that cruelty and that very specific and almost practiced. Practice is the word, I believe. So I wanted those two sensibilities, and I think that a cell phone in modern society does sort of play off that. I think also the cell phone itself as an object is something that we can easily utilize in this sort of statue or obelisk sort of feel. I'm not going to do a monkey. I swear, I promise I'm not going to do a monkey. But if I was going to do another monkey piece, 2001: A Space Odyssey cell phone. I know, it's two on the head, but I promised I wouldn't do monkeys for a while. I'm gonna stay away from monkeys. Remember this, okay? In this particular piece, I thought the image in my mind is that idea of treating the cell phone, yes, like the object of the 2001: A Space Odyssey sort of feel, or any monument that you can consider that is just this kind of shape. Um, you know what I mean? I also didn't want it to be cubist or surreal. Those were two things I really wanted to go away from in this particular piece, other than perhaps playing with forms. I didn't want it to be like a formless thing. I really wanted it to be incredibly like punch you in the face sort of feel. So another thing that kind of popped in my mind was the idea of like 1984. Um, and this idea of being watched all the time, the overseers, all that kind of thing, faux freedom, the idea that you have freedom but you don't, being tethered to this object. I think it all really, really circles nicely back to the worship thing. So you could do the obvious. There's the obvious of like the big rectangle, right? I mean, we could put it on a hill, right? You could put it on a hill. We can have a path. And we have a bunch of people walking up, right? Making their way up to the great, scary. And I mean, we could do tongue in cheek stuff. Like you could have in the background of, we could put our mountain being just this sort of almost exaggerated Batman travel destination, got to go through the hills and do the crazy journey stuff. And then on the way or in the back, we could have, ruined monuments that have been fallen behind this, but we can also use those monuments that say something. So we could have, the dome on the rock that's just kind of, and instead of having it ruined, like smashed, because I don't think that's fair, what we would want to do is like have Vatican City, have all these like sort of religious pieces, but having them like dusty, like they're unkept. What I'm thinking, this could be kind of cool, is what if? So we've got this like obvious pilgrimage, right? And we can make it even crazier because we'll make them even smaller and make it like just this tons of people all going to this one spot, all coming from around. So if we're going to conceptualize the shot, if your brain needs that kind of coverage, let's think that it's like it's a hill. So we've got our cell phone in the middle. This is like a topographical shot. So we got our like top layer. Ooh, it could be like the circles of hell. Ooh, now we're thinking. Now we're cooking. We're cooking. So we do these levels, and it's going to be like a kind of stack, right? But then when you look at it, we're going to want to make it like a janky tiered cake, right? Kind of like, so that there's just some variance, right? You don't want it to be all uniform. So like, you can't just like climb the side like it's Assassin's Creed. It's simple. So we're gonna make it like this, right? But we'll have like multiple attack points so that we can have multiple people moving around in the foreground. This is going to be a pretty big shot, right? We're going to make it. I'm not bagging on religion, but I think if we're going to be doing something like this and we're going to be saying these kinds of things, I don't think there's any reason for us to obfuscate from what we're trying to say. So what we're trying to say is that all of these people worship the great cell phone and that they no longer require the assistance or whatever it was that religion offered them before. So that's just an easy replacement. The inference here, guys, is that we've already done that just by our own choices. This is just a kind of very, very overt punch in the face kind of way of saying that. Now, does that do what we wanted to do given what our mood board is? And I mean, yeah, I would say to a degree, you could say it does. I would also argue that it doesn't. And I'll say why. When I was looking at this brutalist idea, I wanted the scope of like large scale. So where I find that this idea is really large scale, but it's large scale at a distance. So, I mean, the only way I think this works, because I think it's still doable, is that we're going to have to make the scale of this cell phone insane. And I think like the problem with that is that we then want to be here. We actually want to be dwarfed by it, right? So like we would want, rather than having this, we would likely want to be in a position where like this thing is like above us. And it's just this insanely massive, scary thing that we're just standing underneath, and it's just dwarfing us. It goes off into the distance for everness, right? And we're just underneath it, just like staring into space, right? Like it's the God particle. It's just this giant, massive thing. By the way, I know it's not the God particle. I just thought it sounded cool. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think that's one of those things that we kind of have to ask ourselves the question of, I think the real world application of the cell phone having that brutalist and at the same time worshipped status, I think works really well. We could go the other way around and like create statued sort of structures that have cell phones in their hands as if it were like a temple. But I think that's too like right on the nose. And I don't think that we want to do something like build a sculpture, you know what I mean, with some sort of spin. I think the material and that approach is what we want to depict when we're showcasing our brutalist cell phone. But I don't think that we want it to be a, thought out, sculpted, held, sort of statuesque thing. The brutalism is stripped down, angry, almost desolate. And I'm not going to say dystopian because I don't think that's fair, but you get my drift, right? And it's there. And this is too clean. You know what I mean? But I like the cleanliness of it because I think it needs to have that cleanliness or else it's not attractive enough to bring people to the cliff. Does that make sense? Because realistically, that's kind of what we also have to say, is that it's it's a mislead, right? It's pulling you somewhere that you don't want to go. So the journey idea is kind of nice because it creates an understanding that the people who are doing the pilgrimage are the ones who are sacrificing, right? Because they feel like they have to. So, I mean, we've got this. I mean, do we go with this? And then do we kind of like, I mean, we could panel it. There's also paneling. So for a big story, and we panel it. So we make panels and we tell a story about whatever the hell is going on. So then what we can start doing is we can use that mountain as a set piece, right? The set piece can be the last shot of the people going up to worship at the great cell phone, right? And then we can use panels 1, 2, and 3 to get us to that point, right? So we can get us to there so we can have something that depicts the pilgrimage itself, right? Like a group of individuals walking towards something or doing something that way. And then we can have like that would be actually pretty cool, especially if they were like having to carry like their religious iconography or their talisman, and then we could have like a laundry list. And if we really wanted to, we could just again punch people in the face with it, and we could just have branded humans who are like just making their way down the doom track, right? Because while we're sitting here going like, well, they perceive where they're going as being this, salvation. We're gonna see it the right way, and that's the trickery. Is like I want this almost to be a doorway, right? But I want the doorway to like I really want the doorway to exit, right? So like if we were looking at it from the side, it would be like this feeling of this big platform that you would walk up, right? You'd have like a path. Sorry, I wasn't doing my perspective very good. All right, so you're here, but like on the other side is just a cliff, right? So you walk through. Like I kind of want to figure out how to do that. So if we're doing the paneling thing, it would probably work really well. It would just mean that we would have to have like an addition past the hero shot of. So what we could probably do is we could just break this up into like 3-piece instead of having 1 piece, right? So we could go like bang. Oh yeah, this would actually work really well. I think we could go like this. Check this out. See what I see. So what we can do is, okay, so instead of having the hero shot like this, what we do is we go bigger eraser, and we go like this. I show you. Okay. All right, so instead what we do is we break it up like this into like 3 panels or 4 panels. And then we can have us getting like at 11. Okay, so in film it would be like dissolving to get spatial penetration. My object, I want to get my object to be here, right? So I'm going to start here and I'm going to work here and it gets bigger. And I'm going to get here and it's going to get bigger. And I'm going to get here and it's going to get bigger. And then eventually I'm going to get it biggest, right? So we can do that only with paneling. So what we would do is we would go, okay, panel 1 is like, let's conceptualize walking up a set of stairs. So like panel 1 would be, I'm here at the bottom of the stairs, right? This is where I am. Panel 2, I might shift my focal point. So I might, instead of shooting it from a side shot, walking this guy up, maybe I now look at it from like an angle shot like this. So he's more of this. And he's going up the stairs like this. So now, but he's closer. Now we have to have we have to have a destination. So prior to this sequence, which we've already established in our earlier panels, we know where we're going. If this was its own thing, you might have a door at the top of the stairs as the opening shot. So that would be the first thing that you're going to panel. And then you're going to go, okay, first I'm going to have him getting up the first, like, you're obviously on the landing. I've got a foot up. We're good. That's my first couple steps. Since we haven't really showcased how many steps there are going up to this thing, we just know that there are steps. We can do as many of these little panels as we really need to. So now we've got a different angle, and maybe at the top here we can see the landing, so it gives us another angle of, oh, okay, I'm halfway up the stairs now, right? Then you can shift your focal point and be behind the guy, now kind of matching that initial shot so that we can see that perhaps he's right at the top of the stairs because I can start to see, but I can't see past him because now I'm a little tighter on his back because I don't want to show the door. And then we can do the last shot of him being like at the door, you know, and then the door's right there. He could be reaching for it. Or if you really wanted to be clever, you could just have a hand reaching for a doorknob, right? And then that's where I'm now entering the door. So I've accomplished this. I've got my character from the bottom of the stairs or off camera or off frame because I don't know where he is now, but I know he's looking at a door. So obviously he can see from here. Now I'm just going to establish that this is the guy and I want him to get through the door. Now we know where the door is. We know we are on stairs. Killer, that's how we're getting up there. And then we just shift. So like our first shot ends up being like a back shot. So we've got our door as our first shot. Our second shot's going to be a side profile shot of Chico doing the walk up the stairs. I can't figure out which way this guy goes. So this will be our side shot, right? Then we're going to go to this shot, which will allow us to have our door. Then we're going to go to the back shot, which is getting us to the door. And then we can go right to the doorknob and get just the shot of the hand, right? So like that's getting our character to where we want to go. I struggle with this conceptually when I'm trying to figure out how to do like a sequence in a comic book. I've never done a comic book. And I think the biggest struggle I've had is that I've been trying so hard to kind of like mock up my version of my favorite comic books rather than trying to plan a movie, essentially, in a way. Because you have to kind of sequence and make shot sequences. It's an endeavor. So this might be the way to go at it because this kind of does exactly what we want to do. And now we can kind of establish our brutalism and our theme without having to make one punch you in the face image. I do also, however, think that we should keep it to one page. You shouldn't be like, this isn't a comic book. This is an image. It's just one that's going to demand a bit more of our audience, which I'm fine with. And we want our cliff. Yeah, we want the cliff. I don't care if it's a little bit on the nose. Let's do it. Yes, we're going to do the cliff. I like it. I mean, we can do the cliff separate. Then we're doing the cliff. Okay. And I think we understand like kind of the sequencing of what we're going to do to get our guy, our when they're crossing the threshold to go into the stages of walking towards the God cell phone. I think we put a turnstile in there. You know what I mean? I think we put a turnstile in there. You know what I'm saying? And then like it just like we could even have like a little ticket slot. So you gotta have to like just like what if we played on the idea of you have to be this tall to get on? We gotta think about that. Because like I'm going like this tall is a measurement. Yes. Okay. So we're talking about measurement here. And it's measuring based on the fact that obviously you have to be a certain height because of the safety protocols and the safety mechanisms that are on the roller coaster. I'm assuming that's why. If it's something else, please educate me, but I'm thinking that's it. So if we're using that as a measurement to get on the ride, do we use like fluff metrics on social media to be the same thing? So like have that turnstile and then have the measuring stick there, like X amount of followers. You know what I mean? Equals entry. Does that make sense? I think we have something going here. Cattle, right? cattle in concert. Do you get where I'm going with this? Right? Cattle, because you're like, and by cattle, this is not me being, I am being like right in your, punching you in the face. Like, this is cattle going to slaughter. This is not a nice thing. So let's make sure that's understood. So we've got that kind of approach. And then the concert element's got to be the other side of the coin, the excitement, right? Now, in this case, the concert, we want them like the Judas cow concept, right? So all of these people are now being corralled to their doom, and they're happy and they're oblivious to it. They're just wonderful participants because they don't know any better, right? What they've been convinced is this is the right answer. You got to go. Let's go, right? So I like that idea. I like the idea of them submitting, but I also like the idea of having a measuring stick that they themselves are being measured against, because that's almost the cruel joke, right? So I wasn't digging this when we first started mapping it out, because I thought it was just kind of wah. But the more I think about it, the more I think this idea of this sort of paneled kind of that like single comic book page sort of feel to it, and then that saying something, I like that answer, and I think that's the right move. So I'm gonna go comic book, right? Why don't we go like Frank Miller meets brutalist, right? He kind of is a brutalist artist. And by Frank Miller, I don't mean like we're just going to copy Frank Miller, but remember, we're talking like heavy blacks, heavy, deep blacks and dark colors and just hardcore contrast. So that's stripped down. And really what I've kind of put out in the mood map here is this is kind of what we're talking about here. The only thing I had was a little bit of gold, right? And that I think was just a nice subtle touch, just because I think it would be a nice subtle touch. But past that, I think we're going to go hard to blacks, right? Maybe some warm tones for lighting purposes. But past that, I think this lends itself really well to that like very harsh, dark contrast. So I think that's what we're going to rock with. I am over the moon happy with this, guys. Look at us go. Like, now we are cooking. And as a ex-chef, I can actually say that.